able to fight God is a recurring staple in gaming. I mean, if it's not the devil, it's God. Kinda comes with the territory. And not just in the biblical sense. Many games across varying genres allow you a chance to square off against the almighty of several pantheons and legends. And somehow it's winnable. Video games are weird. And we're gonna be ranking boss fights with the best creators, subjects of worship, and highest powers of their respective universes. And yes, we are going to count gods of evil, which are very different from an ancient demon who happens to be worshipped. Has to be a legit title to some degree. I'd say they have to be verified to be considered, but that joke kind of doesn't work anymore. Whoa! Kicking off the list with the alpha Pokemon already!
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Despite being what is essentially the Pokemon god, Arceus wasn't really given much of a presence during the early days of its debut. In fact, a lot of people thought we peaked early in Gen 4, after literally dropping actual god as a catchable Pokemon. Well, where do you go from there?
What do we go for next?
Only one place left to go. We go for God.
Wait, no, we got that one too.
Oh. Yay!
Needless to say, a lot of people thought it was a bit silly that you can catch actual God. Fortunately, Gen 8 amends that with Legends Arceus and gives our all-powerful Holy Llama the grand post-game fight and lore fix he deserves. See, the Arceus we've seen and are familiar with, that's not actually him. That's more of what you can perceive of him. To put it simply, the Arceuses we catch are avatars, not the actual deity itself. You fight Arceus in a Lord duel, armed with balls of light, while Arceus rains down a wide array of light beams, meteors, and shockwaves after you. He will fly, clone himself, warp reality to catch you by surprise, and summon energy balls that you have to dissipate, or he will catch you in an unavoidable area attack. Only then will you be able to send your Pokemon out, but that's not the easy part either. Arceus will adapt to the type weakness of your Pokemon at will, almost always scoring a super effective hit with Judgment. So you better have counter coverage ready for each of your Pokemon's weaknesses, or you're not getting anywhere. This is a really intense fight, especially since each attack can hurt you a lot and leave you very little room to recover. The only real downside to this boss are the checkpoints. Sure, they're optional and you can choose to start the fight all over again if you really want a challenge, but it kind of does hamper down the difficulty when you have the option to cheese your way to this last health bar. Also, it kind of feels like your victory wasn't really earned if God is just taking it easy on you. Yeah, I know this is a thing with the Lord fights in general, and the game does want to stay accessible without being too intimidating, but come on, we had Volo and Giratina beforehand, and those fights ain't easy. So I feel like being a little more hands-off here with the difficulty would have been fine. Still, that doesn't make this fight any less legendary. And consider this, what we're fighting is merely one of Arceus' many forms. This isn't even a percent of what Arceus can actually do, and he's already blowing our minds. It's one of Pokemon's many mysteries that not only remains fresh, but is made even better now. The Simpsons game. While merely competent from a gameplay perspective, it is an absolute masterclass in escalating insanity. We start off innocuously enough with the titular family discovering their video game characters, and therefore have all kinds of powers. Being, well, The Simpsons, they use said powers for personal gain, winning eating contests, mob justice, and destroying a factory. Their fun is cut short, however, when aliens invade. This leads to fighting off giant mascots, a dolphin army, and a genre-savvy video game boss. The only way for The Simpsons to stop said invasion is with the assistance of the show's creator.
Seth MacFarlane?
Bruh.
But first they must get keys from parodies of the following games: Pokemon, EverQuest, Medal of Honor, and GTA.
You ripped me off, see? No, I didn't, see?
Unfortunately, Matt Groening isn't so willing to save his creations. Afterwards, we get this line.
I'm gonna use my Buddha hand powers to build a tower to heaven out of Springfield buildings. Then we can get to the only authority who outranks Matt Groening, God.
And how do they combat God? Pfft, DDR, of course. Yep, the battle against God is a dance-off. And not just against him, his creations, many of which are the enemies you already killed in previous levels. Listen, Rock You Like a Hurricane, great remix, don't think about it. Through sheer determination, they destroy God's Prey Station. Oh, okay, that sounded a little racist. Exodus Box, and he...
Oh, okay, I see what you did there.
Now, admittedly, this fight isn't anything amazing. It's just DDR with an insane set piece. But the build-up and aftermath of it all is just too good to not include. Afterward, you find out that the Simpsons game itself was just a minigame within God's Earth game. Afterwards, take a look.
Wow!
Xenoblade, the game where you start delivering a sandwich, then end by killing God. In Xenoblade's world, there are two titans, the natural life-giving Bionis and the mechanical Mechanis. Our heroes, being mostly human, fight against the militarized Mechon, which serve as the primary antagonists of the game. So it comes as a genuine shock that Dixon betrays everyone and reveals that the Monado was essentially the One Ring, and the Mechanis goddess was good the whole time. Well, crap. Zanza was originally a human by the name of Klaus, who after causing the birth of a new universe became one of the gods of it. However, he developed an actual god complex through his new power. Despite wishing for companionship, he feared his creations would leave him, meaning his own demise. He created a cycle of destruction and rebirth, causing the races of the Bionis to return to it after their death, which is just another way of converting those dead bodies into energy for Zanza to absorb. He tasked his minions to attack the Mechanis and their goddess Meneth to achieve his ideal world. Luckily, he was stopped and sealed away in Prison Island. Well, until he possessed Shulk and had his minion Dixon groom him to try and escape. Shulk and his team eventually confront Zanza in the Bionis core, despite Zanza having power of both creation and the future. The first form summons two guardians to protect him, while Zanza dishes out strong Monado attacks. This form is beaten pretty easily as there isn't much to it. Phase 2, though, takes all of his Phase 1 attacks and buffs them. They do a lot more damage. He can buff himself and debuff you. He replaces his Monado attacks with attacks based on both the Bionis and Mechanis. And he can still summon guardians. Despite Zanza taking Shulk's ability to see the future and using it against you in this battle, you can still trigger visions by getting to burst affinity with your party. Once you get this second phase to 20%, Shulk is able to gain the power of a new Monado, one that surpasses Zanza's and has the power to kill gods. This triggers the third phase, which is the same as the second, but Zanza has less HP and Shulk has a way better weapon. Keep it up and you will fulfill your RPG protagonist destiny of killing a god. Zanza and Shulk are actually opposite to a fault. Zanza was a human who got corrupted with power and loneliness and wanted to recreate the world in his image, something we'll see often on this list.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
And Shulk wanted to create a world without gods where the different races could work together to survive. Despite Zanza grooming Shulk to do his bidding, Shulk killed him with his own blade. And while Zanza, and more specifically Klaus, got more development in future games, we'll leave it here. Like all creative fiction, video games love to pull from real-world mythology. Not surprising, since it has a rich well of deep, interesting, and royalty-free ideas to draw from. Fantastical creatures, epic battles, and, more often than not, jerk-face gods. And one of the most prolific gods in Norse mythology is none other than Yggdrasil the World Tree. Quick rundown on Etrian Odyssey for posterity. You're a new adventurer who's come to town seeking your fortunes in the labyrinth, a mysterious place filled with monsters and treasure. You lead a team of fellow adventurers down into the labyrinth to recover those treasures and create a map of the labyrinth. Literally. Part of the fun of Etrian Odyssey is that you have the option to draw your own map of each floor. But as you go deeper, your renown grows and eventually you meet with the leader of the town, Vilsle. He's a tall, imposing man, and he gives you tasks to do from time to time, but you get the feeling he's hiding something. As you reach the lowest floors, the mysteries of the labyrinth start to unravel. He gives you one final task: destroy the forest folk who inhabit the labyrinth. As you venture deeper into the labyrinth, you encounter a forest folk girl who spoke of ancient promises and holy ground. You know not of what she speaks, and for the sake of getting to the bottom of the dungeon, you have to fulfill Vilsle's request. Once you reach the bottom, you learn each request from Vilsle was designed to destroy you. He had hoped your bodies would join the countless dead adventurers who had risked their lives in the labyrinth. His last gamble was that the forest folk would kill you. However, you proved too strong, but now you know the truth. 1,000 years ago, the world was destroyed and remade, humanity along with it. The Yggdrasil project then recreated humanity and made the forest folk. Vilsle is one of the last of the original humanity, but he has been corrupted by the Yggdrasil project. Vilsle fuses fully with the tree, and the fight is on. Obviously, a lot was glossed over, but you get the general idea. The Yggdrasil project / Vilsle boss fight is a challenge worthy of being considered the god of the world it created. It can cleanse your party of buffs, it can regenerate its HP at a staggering rate per turn, and can instantly kill a party member who is at less than half HP, and heal itself for the HP that party member had remaining. And these are just some of the more notable things Yggdrasil is capable of. There are plenty of other things it could do to put an end to your party, but hope is not lost. Etrian Odyssey's combat has a few unique quirks that, if mastered, will surely see you to victory. The Yggdrasil project is a test of that mastery. Players who have learned how to use and abuse the power the game systems give to you will be victorious. Those who still have a thing or two to learn will probably struggle a lot more. Honestly, that might be the best part of the game. You can be crazy underleveled and undergeared, but mastery of the combat system, you can see your party triumph over seemingly impossible odds. Once you defeat the Yggdrasil project, you leave the labyrinth, but a part of you wonders if there might be something more lurking down there in the dark. A part of you fears this isn't quite over. Last month we talked about the closed gacha game Dragalia Lost, and wow, I was surprised to see the support of the game when talking about the other. Is this going to be the new Trails? I don't know. It has been almost a year since it ended, so let's give one more tribute by talking about the game's main and final villain, the progenitor Zenos. Similar to Zanza, Zenos was one of two deities that existed before the world's creation. After meeting the dragon Bahamut, the two found solace in each other after being alone for so long, so they decided to create a world together where humans and dragons could work together. Yeah, you know how this story goes. Their subjects start craving power and rebel against their creators. Well, Bahamut destroyed the world, and the two decided to create a new one. However, they differed in how to do it this time. Zenos wanted a world of order without change, while Bahamut wanted a world of possibility where humanity could choose their fate. The only difference this time is that they were both evil. Bahamut created the Great Worms to help defeat Zenos, and why is Xenoblade footage playing? Anyway, he possessed Yuden's older brother, had minions stick around to cause events that led to his resurrection, like creating the Other and reviving Satan. Once he's resurrected, he destroys every other world other than his own, almost killing our heroes in the process, but definitely killing every other person you met who wasn't part of the main group. Why is this just Zanza again?
I feel like we've been here before. Have we been here before?
Anyway, the fight with Zenos is a gauntlet. His first phase is pretty simple, as he will have beam attacks and dark portals that can do decent damage. However, his HP is fairly low, and his guard can be broken easily. When phase 2 kicks in, he summons the power he stole from Bahamut to combine his own dark magic and dragon's power. He has way more HP in this phase, and his attacks become more varied. Halfway through this phase, he will have a DPS check where you need to destroy his block minions, or an obligatory giant ball of energy will drop on your head. He continues this battle by using the other elements in the game, creating many varied attacks that can drop your HP fast if you aren't careful. Just when you beat this phase and you think you've won, the real battle begins. Zenos comes right back with an even stronger third form with the obligatory vocal theme. Yeah, you know we're in the end now. At this time, you need to destroy the two tentacles next to him and then attack the shield blocking him. Eventually, a scene plays out where Yuden destroys both tentacles and the shield protecting him, allowing you to finally attack Zenos head on. This phase is ridiculous. He has even more HP than before, and his attacks will cover the screen. Oh, and don't try to auto-battle this fight. The brawl is really long. Depending on your team, it could take from 15 minutes to almost an hour to win. Or you can be as masochistic as my co-writer, who decided to fight him with a free-to-play team. That took almost 80 minutes to beat him. Even after you beat the third phase, his HP bar will rise again. Keep it up and you will finally defeat this insane battle. And even after that, he still isn't dead. You have to go through a scripted stage as Yuden right after he gains the power of everyone in the world to finally be able to finish Zenos off. Zenos is one of the longest and most insane battles on this list. The only reason he's here is because the other fights have similar feats that are better characterized throughout their stories. Despite his influence, Zenos only shows up in the third to last chapter of the story. Well, excluding his possession of Yuden's brother fairies. Plus, you can't even experience this fight yourself since Dragalia ended. Either way, if this was how it went out, it definitely ended with a bang. Almost like this one.
Cut!
Yeah, always got you there. Like all creative fiction, video games love to pull from real-world mythology. Not surprising, since... Oh, sorry, I just got a really weird sense of deja vu. Anyway, Fire Emblem. In the Radiant duology, we hear words about a couple of gods, the dark god Yune that lives in Laren's medallion, and the bountiful goddess Ashura who loves and protects humanity with a loving hand that's worshipped by the whole world. Yuna and Ashura once were on being named Ashunara, but the two split after they accidentally caused a massive flood that destroyed most of the world. Discovering that the cause was letting their emotions run amok, Ashunara split off their emotions, which became Yuna, the goddess of chaos, while the emotionless being left behind became Ashura, the goddess of order. Wanting to be rid of Yuna, Ashura tasked her 3 heroes killing her emotional half. It was only when the heron Laren convinced Ashura to spare her and seal her away in a medallion. Wait a minute.
Oh my god, this is happening again.
What is with Nintendo JRPG gods having similar backstories? Anyway, while Yune is neither evil nor good, just chaos, she is labeled as a dark god that must never be awakened. If Ashura is awakened by the chaotic energy of war, she'll just purge the Bjork and Laguz races and start anew. Of course, this is a Fire Emblem game, so war is inevitable. However, Yuna was not woken by war, but by a song made to free her. Too bad Ashura didn't care and turned most of the world's population to stone. At this point, Yuna tests Ike, Micaiah, and their friends to defeat the god and free the world. After some of the most difficult maps in Fire Emblem, you eventually reach Ashura herself, where she is going to make your life a living hell. The battle begins with Ashura at the center of the map, surrounded by mirage copies of herself. If you attack the copies without the Nile skill, prepare for some damage. Every few turns, she will cast a giant AoE spell that will do pretty decent damage to your whole party. Once you destroy the copies, you can attack Ashura herself, and she is in the slouch. With 120 HP and a powerful spell, you need to be on your guard. Okay, back then 120 HP actually meant something. Powerful fighters like Ike or the Laguz Royals, minus Kurth, will be needed to strike her down. Once all of the copies have been killed and Ashura is low on HP, you must finish her off with Ike. Yune will give all her power to Ike, and Ike will stand his ground against the goddess of order, finishing her off in an ether to end all ethers. A great ether, if you will. Nah, kid, but man, that would have been cool. Similar to Zenos, Ashura is a being of pure order and stagnation. She rebels against the idea of chaos and is only about the possibility of establishing a pure order where things go her way. Unlike with Zenos, this feels more personal, as you get to learn more about and travel with the opposite goddess Yune. You learn that she is selfish but kind. She's condescending but cares for humanity's potential. And it hurts more how powerless she is against Ashura despite once being a part of her. Ultimately, Ike and Micaiah showed Ashura humanity's potential, allowing Ashunara to look over humanity once again. Didn't expect the god to have a happy ending this time around. It's tough to be a god. No, really. 1 minute you're at the top of the hive with a legion of mindless worshippers that you created. Then next, some fancy pants worm slithers in, offering free will and sentience, and suddenly they all think he's their creator. Ungrateful little Insects? Yeah, insects. How dare they forget their one true matriarch? There's only one way to prove that you're the one and only divine being there is. Manipulate their dreams and start a plague.
Are we the baddies?
And that's essentially the story of the Radiants, the one who gave birth to the Moth tribe. But then the Pale King came around and expanded their minds, and they all turned their backs on her. This could be a pretty sad tale of a tragic goddess abandoned by her followers, if she didn't cause the plague in an attempt to enslave her old followers and infected the Hallow Nest out of rage. She was sealed away in a vessel, night-like creations made to protect the Hollow Nest from the infection, one of them being our own protagonist. Unfortunately, the vessel that contained her went quite right in the head. Thanks to this, the Radiance was able to wipe out the rest of the beings in the Hollow Nest and threaten to wipe out the rest of the land. And thus, our knight enters the picture. While her vessel, the titular Hollow Knight, is the original final boss, if you have the Void Soul equipped, you'll be taken to the Dream Realm. Aw, it's actually kind of peaceful here. Oh, and look at that, a lovely view of the sun. Oh, crumbs. That's no sun. That's a goddess. Good news? She doesn't make contact damage. Bad news? She doesn't need it. She barrages you with non-stop attacks, spiked floors, light beams, platforms, and knives. Lots of knives. She throws so many knives at you she could get a job at Annoying Orange. Going head to toe with the disgraced goddess is a trip and a half, already considering you barely have time to lick your wounds from her vessel. But it's all worth it in the end when you finally put an end to the infection and be rid of this petty deity. At least until the Godmaster DLC, where you're pitted against an extra buff version of her at the end of the biggest gauntlet in the game. Have fun trying to get there, you masochist!
Hades. 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 Hades.
Name is Hades, Lord of the Dead. Hi, how you doing?
Hades, one of the Greek pantheon's most affable and iconic gods. Granted, most of them are downright saintly compared to Zeus. And being a very popular myth, Hades has seen his fair share of adaptations into games, and even getting his own boss fights. And because of that, we're kind of spoiled for choice as to which is the best one. There's the Final Fantasy IX iteration, which portrays him as a blacksmith for some reason. Pretty sure that's Hephaestus' thing, but great idea nonetheless. And we're all very well acquainted with Disney's take on the character, showing up several times in Kingdom Hearts. He has a decent enough fight in KH2, but boy, does it get annoying having to get Hercules to constantly depower him. However, if you want a more gritty and brutish take, then look no further than God of War 3, a cross between Sauron and a disgruntled jailer, voiced by none other than Mr. Krabs himself. Zeus boy me god, Kratos has slaughtered me wife and is now yanking me soul out with me own weapon. Arg, 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 arg. There's also Hades from Hades. Pretty straightforward. The ultimate test of everything you've learned and gained in your run, with loads of different and fun builds to experiment with against him. All of these Hadeses are interesting iterations of the myth with the most compelling bosses in gaming. But let's not bury the lead. You guys know which one I'm gonna pick.
Was there ever any doubt?
Yeah, real obvious, but can you blame me? It's fun, funny, and a perfect finale for such a fantastic villain. For the longest time, the Kid Icarus franchise has been playing it really loosey-goosey with its portrayal of Greek mythology. I mean, Medusa was made queen of the underworld and not Persephone. So once Medusa is vanquished and the credits roll, it comes as a genuine shock to see that true king of the dead barge in like a freight train to cancel out the fairy tale, all for one final battle against our hero. Mechanically, there's not much to the fight. Dodge his attacks, shoot his weak points. Timing and execution will be the key factor in this battle, but it's nothing too complex. But all that mechanical. The biggest highlight of this boss is the banter and dialogue. This may not be the most lore-accurate iteration of Hades in a game. Okay, it's definitely not. But you cannot deny just the entertainment. Let us have this. What? You thought I wouldn't? That's cute. If you want a prime example of the power corrupts trope, look no further than my boy, my inspiration, arguably my all-time favorite character, Kefka from Final Fantasy VI. I may have mentioned once or twice ad nauseum how much I love this demented clown. His chaotic personality, his devious laugh, his final boss music is strategically designed masterpiece that didn't need to hit so hard. But it did anyway, cause Kefka don't give a shit. Just a quick recap of the Psycho Clown's upbringing. In the beginning, he was just another poor soul nabbed by the supposed big bad Emperor Gestalt. He was experimented on with science and magic and made into Gestalt's court jester. However, as is the tradition with clowns in the media, Kefka flips his cookies and turns into a genocidal psycho clown bent on total destruction. So naturally, Gestalt makes him his right-hand best buddy, where I'm sure he'll never regret such a decision at.
Oh, what kind of deliciously depraved memories should I fill you up with this time around?
Oh right, dangerously unhinged. So Kefka ultimately says screw you to the Gestalt, swipes the Warring Triad, and becomes the god of magic.
Get what you deserve!
Using his newfound might, he aims to wipe out everything and anything that stands in his way. And unfortunately, you're one of those things in his way. So after taking out the statue of the gods, nicely representing Kefka's personality by the way, you face the demented Harlequin himself, and he's bulked up quite a bit. His opening move reduces your HP to 1, even if you're at full health. And on top of that, he's got the elements on his side with fire, ice, and lightning at his fingertips, along with arguably his most powerful attack, Forsaken. With a heavy hitting power of 220, this unholy blast can take a chunk out of your party and cannot be blocked. This boss fight is pretty great. The only thing holding it back is that the fight is a bit on the easy side. Again, Final Fantasy's Esper system is fun, but definitely one of the more exploitable magic systems in the franchise. Once you figure him out and build up your own power, it isn't too tough to wipe that smug smile off his face via disintegration. However, his characterization, his personality, and yes, his blessed boss fight music outmatches everything else on this list. Not to mention, he succeeded in what he set out to do. He reached the top of the food chain, ruled everything for a year before he was dethroned and killed. He accomplished it all with a demented smile on his face, an eerie laugh, and a nihilistic view of the world that only further rounds him as a being of pure chaos. Not to mention, you can't overlook the tragedy of his upbringing. He didn't choose to be this destructive psycho, but now that he's been dealt the cards, he's gonna make sure everyone feels his wrath while he cackles all the way. Oh, and if you dare get sand on his boots, well, I hope you weren't attached to the whole being alive thing. Galdera, Octopath Traveler. The block doesn't just have some daddy issues. Her daddy is the issue. Odin, Jotun, you do the Allfather's bidding and he still chooses to smite his loyal disciple. Sylvian, Fear and Hunger, the mother of all monsters. So you can blame her for all the dicks you've been seeing. Angel of Light and Shadow, Bomberman 64, second attack. Bit of an overly dramatic conclusion to a Bomberman game, but still epic nonetheless. Thor, God of War Ragnarok. If Endgame turned Thor into this, his change in physique would have been positively received. Dio Gone to Heaven, JoJo Eyes of Heaven. Dio becoming the literal god he believes himself to be is beyond epic. He can still lose via a normal fistfight though. Jubileus, Bayonetta, a perfectly climactic boss that's all about climaxes. No, not that kind. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah.
I am the true God.
I am Chakra Varden.
Chakra Varden, a boss we've admittedly overlooked in quite a few past countdowns due to some rulings, but have definitely made the list were not locked behind a paywall. For an almighty creator, Chakra Varden's true form is kind of dinky in scale, so he loses points. They are supposed to be a difficulty spike. And again, as great as that battle is, Chakra Varden will not be on the list. Dang it, there's always something fun that disqualifies him. So, who thought that after all that, he'd find himself at number 1 not once, but twice? This keeps up there might be a room for another member of the number 1 club. It should come as no surprise why he's at the top. Out of all the massive pantheons we've covered up to this point, none of them have even come close to the same level of presence, spectacle, and absolute power that Chakra Varden imposed. Based on the ideal universal ruler depicted within Buddhist and Hindu mythology, Chakra Varden stands tall with 22 arms and a treasure trove's worth of symbolism. From his golden spider being based off of the spider's thread, to his QTE buttons having symbols that represent the mantras of Indian spiritualism. And the scale of his might, he can stop Asura's punch with the flick of a finger. You know, Asura, the guy who punched a planet-sized deity to dust? Yeah, that guy. Even when he's hundreds of light years away from Gaia, you can still see him. That's how astronomical he is. Nevertheless, he's still got on Asura's nerves. You don't toy around with the angriest god for thousands of years, dangle his daughter in front of him, and expect to get away with it. Before you even reach Chakra Varden, you have to fly across the universe as a wizened-sized Asura and punch through a series of stars that the so-called creator throws at you. Once you meet him in the event horizon, he asks you to pay for the child support he offered. You throw the receipt at his face, and now he's gonna sue. Chakra Varden's preferred method of attack comes in the form of his favorite mantra, energy balls.
Give him the energy balls.
In every phase, whether it's the normal one, the giant Naraka statue, or his ominous final form, he's raining down balls at you in every way. Your counter? Punch him. Punch the balls all the way back at him, and punch him every way back in the face! And speaking of punching, sure a lot of JoJo references here. Between the series of jabs Asura and Chakra Varden throw at each other, to the boss freezing time and throwing daggers at you, man, not even the actual JoJo game made Dio this good. On top of the incredible cinematics, intense atmosphere, Asura's Wrath also has an excellent handling of quick-time events. You can tell this is where it's at its finest when even the big bad has his own prompts. And after all that, you get the satisfaction of watching this universe-level threat squirm. Asura's incalculable anger finally catches up to him, and he's reduced to nothing more than space dust. Chakra Varden is everything we want to see in a god boss. Grand spectacle, insane power levels, and a brawl that throws every punch necessary to make a breathtaking fight. If I could crown any fight a masterpiece, this would stand high on that pedestal with almost no contest. I'm joshscorcher, and you'd think fighting gods would have been much more challenging, which I guess is the consequence of not expecting anyone to fight back. Perhaps we should look for foes that'll actually put up a fight. Hint, hint, hint.
Cut!
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around. Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch, and Tumblr. Check out my other channels such as Joshua Burner for reactions and other stuff, Dragon Fighter Gaming for tabletop, and Bob Equestria for cartoons. Consider checking below the video and donating to my Patreon, Streamlabs for my merchandise, or becoming a YouTube member. Thanks for watching.